Good morning, my name's Jeff Smales and today I have the privilege of starting the week off on a Monday and continuing our story of King David and King Saul and the transition of the power from Saul to David. This move of power from Saul to David was not straightforward. It took a long time and there were many twists and turns. And in effect, we have some of the most memorable parts of the Old Testament contained in the end of 1 Samuel. We've already had David and Goliath, and this week we're going to have a witch, a battle, lots of double dealing, extortion, and a very strong and courageous woman. So, enough content for many blockbuster films from Hollywood. Well, let's start our Bible reflection today. We're in 1 Samuel chapter 25, the story of David, Abigail and her husband Nabal, if that's the correct pronunciation. So, Samuel has just died, so Israel has lost its spiritual head. Samuel has been out of the public life for a few years. He hasn't been in contact with Saul and doesn't appear to be that involved in David's life either. So David is out in the desert and he's got with him his bunch of men, around about 600 probably, so if you include women and children, well over 1,000 people. And David needed to provide food for these people. And the way he did it was they went out on raiding parties. They would go and plunder and extort food and money from the local towns and villages. But in the area he was living with Nabal, the landowner, he was not plundering his flocks. Nabal was very rich. He had several thousand sheep and more goats besides. So David was a good neighbour to Nabal. Now it was the sheep shearing festival, and tradition was that the landowner gave a feast, and that feast was not just for his mates but also for the poor of the area. So David sent some men to ask for some food from the festival, and Nabal sent them away with nothing. David's reaction was very strong. He was livid. He was out for revenge. He saw it as an insult against all the traditions of Israel, and his promise was to kill every male in Nabal's family. A very violent and drastic and revengeful action. So, Nabal's wife found out about this, and she took swift and decisive action. She got some supplies, lots of bread and wine and cakes of raisins and cakes of figs, loaded up donkeys and sent them towards David. She joined that party, and when she met David and his men coming to enact their revenge, she gave David a long speech. She bowed down before him. She praised him. She was very humble. She was very disrespectful towards her husband and his behaviour. And basically, she acted as a peacemaker. She prevented David from taking the action he had planned. And David was very grateful for her intervention. Now, the festivities continued, and Abigail told her husband the next morning what she'd done. Her husband's reaction was to have a heart attack. He turned to stone, so he went into a coma, I guess, and died 10 days later, and Abigail became David's wife. So, what can we learn from this? Well, Abigail was a peacemaker. It says in the Beatitudes in Matthew chapter 5 verse 9, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the daughters of God." So My challenge to all of us today is, where can we act as a peacemaker? Where can we take the sort of actions that Abigail did to prevent conflict? So I'd like you to consider that, and tomorrow we will continue the story of David and King Saul. Bye.